Hi everyone, welcome back to the Grow Paradise garden. Now it's been a little while since we've been here, but the plants are waking up despite all of the rain and hailstorms that we've been having quite frequently through early spring. The jungle border behind me is starting to come into leaf. We've got rare plants like the Brassaiopsis pushing out new leaves. Plants from New Zealand that have become increasingly hardy as they've matured in the Grow Paradise garden. And I'm going to show you the border just behind the camera, the narrow border that flanks our garden path, which is the perfect spot for experimenting with half-hardy and tender tropical style plants that fit into a narrow border, which is great for small gardens. So let me grab the camera and show you around. Okay, let's start this video by looking at something that has seen better days, clearly. This was our mountain papaya, grown from seed about 2 or 3 years ago. It got way too big, way too tall to be able to be overwintered in our little 6-foot by 8-foot greenhouse over there. So I had to leave it out in this bed, and I wrapped it in fleece and I just hoped for the best. Now it's from high altitude location, so it's got a chance, or had a chance, of surviving, but it clearly struggled. We got minus 5.6 in the Grow Paradise garden for several nights in a row, and despite it being wrapped in fleece, it has perished. I unwrapped it and I really wasn't surprised. It was a bit of an experiment, but it's not one I'm going to be repeating. Although that hasn't worked, there have been some successes, like our Pseuodopanax laetus. Now, you can probably tell from the leaves that this is related to Schefflera. So many of us grow Schefflera taiwaniana, which is a really beautiful hardy species. But this Pseuodopanax originates from New Zealand. It is evergreen, and you can see it does get slightly damaged by frost, so there's some frost damage on the leaf there. But as it becomes larger and more established, it becomes much more cold tolerant. And in previous years, it lost all of its foliage and was just bare sticks. But despite the cold we had this year, you can see how many leaves it's still got. It is climbing up over the fence, so it's going for about 7 foot tall now. And these lush green leaves, this glossy evergreen leaf, it's pushing out so many new leaves. Before long, it will naturally drop these leaves because they're not healthy, and it's going to have all of this new material for photosynthesizing. And I just love how lush and green all of this looks at this time of year. And it's got these big kind of Schefflera-esque looking leaves, these palmate leaves divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaflets. I think its common name is the New Zealand five-finger. So if you can find a Pseuodopanax like this, definitely give it a go. I absolutely love this. The stems, if we go down into the center of the shrub, are becoming really woody now. So now that this is happening, it's going to be much more cold tolerant. If we get severe cold, all of this part of the plant, which is in a warmer microclimate under all of the leaves, is likely to be untouched, and we'll just lose the freshest new growth, which is fine. As it grows more and more, there's going to be kind of more established stems to recover from in spring. Just next to that, now coming into leaf, is my Brassaiopsis mitis. This has to be one of the most asked about plants on the Grow Paradise nursery. People are constantly asking me, have you propagated it yet? Have you taken cuttings? No, I haven't. This one I'm going to leave out as an experiment in the Grow Paradise garden. It's been planted out for 2 years now, and I'm really pleased to see that it's survived. I did wrap the stem in fleece when we had that really cold weather. But it didn't really need it. They're said to be hardy down to below minus 10. It does lose all of its leaves, but it quickly pushes out these snowflake looking leaves in spring. Now behind that is my Musa basjoo. Now because I'm in the south of the UK and I'm close to the coast, I don't have to wrap these hardy banana plants. It's already pushing out new leaves, but because of the spring and winter storms that we're getting, it's obviously being shredded to pieces. Now I haven't yet cut back the main stem here to kind of allow fresh, clean, unobstructed growth of the banana leaves, but I have done it on the pups that were popping up at the side. You can see here I've gone straight through with a knife and it's pushing out new leaves. Now, that's a really good tip. If you are growing banana plants and it looks like it's all growing in a tangle at the top, just cut straight through. It feels brutal. It may look like this. It's all a bit of a tangled mess and a bit congested. Just cut straight through and it opens it up so that all the fresh new banana leaves can grow out really quickly. You might have the first leaf looking a bit shredded and cut in half, but after that, they'll push out really well. And it's not just one pup. Down here, There's another. There's actually 2 or 3 that I've done it to, a couple at the base there. And kind of the Pseuodopanax, the evergreen Pseuodopanax that I was just talking about, is starting to wrap around this pseudostem of the banana, which is going to provide another warm microclimate. It's going to help keep the frost away, which means I'm really not going to have to protect this to keep the stem tall and healthy year on year. It should just get taller and taller. Now, if we come right down low, this is the bottom of my bed. Now, this might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I never, ever cut back stems of herbaceous plants in autumn or winter. I will leave them as a habitat for wildlife, for frogs, toads, mice, insects, because they'll make their homes inside of these stems. And then once I see the plant reshooting like this is our Impatiens tinctoria, which is one of my favorite hardy Impatiens, then I will just cut back the old stems or break them back if I'm able to, like that. And I don't take my garden waste away. I leave it on the bed to break down, just as it would in a forest. It's sort of the natural cycle. So you'll see at the back of my borders is all of last year's material breaking down, enriching the soil, really, really encouraging life just to flourish in the soil. And that's going to be so beneficial for the plants. They'll be so much happier for sharing the soil with all of that fungal life. And this is something in permaculture, which is a method of growing edible plants, that's called chop and drop. You literally chop your leaves and just leave them where they are and they'll break down. And the added benefit of that is it suppresses weed growth because the surface of your soil is covered. And it also reduces the amount of watering you're going to have to do, because every bit of soil that's covered, whether it's with material that's breaking down or plants that are growing, it's covering the surface of that soil, reducing the amount of sunlight that's going to be beating down onto it, and it's going to retain that moisture. Now, right down here is a plant that I didn't expect to survive. This clearly got frosted back. This is a plant that originates from Brazil. So the fact that it survived minus 5.6, probably slightly warmer in this microclimate underneath that lovely Pseudopanax. It's Justicia carnea, the Brazilian plume flower, and it's pushing out new shoots, basal shoots from the base of the plant. We'll see how this goes. I imagine it's going to put all of its growth energy into recovering, and it's probably not going to have time to flower this year, but I could be wrong. So I'll keep following this plant's journey, and hit subscribe if you haven't already, because then you'll see just how hardy this might be. I do have plants that I've overwintered in our greenhouse at a minimum temperature of 5 degrees Celsius, and they tolerate that. So perhaps it's got more hardiness than I originally thought. Okay, let's walk along. Now, because we're sharing the Grow Paradise garden with the Grow Paradise nursery, we have to come out past these benches here that have all of the nursery stock plants and back in. Now, an unexpected bonus of turning a lot of our garden into nursery is that it's looking permanently lush and green, because there's just so much foliage that we're sourcing for all of your gardens, and it's adding to mine while it's here. Now, I did a video earlier in the year about how to prune trees, and this is our loquat tree, Areobotrya japonica, and it's pushing out these really nice silvery looking leaves after having quite a severe prune to keep it at a size that's in scale with the space that we've got here in the Grow Paradise garden. But I love this one just for the size of these corrugated leaves. It's evergreen, it looks exotic all year round, and it's providing a bit of a windbreak for the garden, because we are coastal and we do get battered by winds, especially this year. Now, here is my own Fatsia polycarpa green fingers. Again, this was a lot more susceptible to cold damage in winter when it was younger. But now that it's becoming established, now that the stems are getting thicker, it's doing really, really well. So it's pushing out new growth already. Again, making use of that warmer microclimate underneath an evergreen tree, which is a really good tip. If you're going to experiment with half-hardy or slightly tender plants, use an evergreen canopy, a bit of evergreen cover, to provide a bit of protection from frosts. It all helps. And then down at the base, we've got that reliable stalwart, Persicaria roncinata purple fantasy. Now, I love this plant. It can be a bit of a thug, so you just have to keep on top of it. It doesn't spread by running, but if it leans over and touches the ground, like it's obviously done here last season, it will root and then start growing. But it's an amazing, easy to grow, very shade tolerant, and completely hardy herbaceous perennial that's got these amazing leaves. They look triangular, and there's actually like a fishtail shape here with this purple and silver chevron going through the leaf. Now I'm going to grow a bit more of this in my garden, possibly in pots. I love it. It's just so interesting. It looks super exotic. It's definitely one to give a go. And then just here, a plant that the slugs and snails love is my aspidistra, the cast iron plant. This is a plant that Victorians love to grow as a houseplant, and it's called the cast iron plant because it's said to be indestructible. And they're actually a lot more hardy outdoors than people realise, but they are such a slug magnet. So yeah, do what you need to protect them. Our method is going to be building a wildlife pond just the other side of these pots here, which I'll go and show you now. But en route, let's just have a look at this Tillandsia. This has been hanging underneath this loquat tree all winter long outside, and it has survived. Again, making use of that warmer microclimate under an evergreen canopy. It's just spotting those areas in your garden that you can kind of push your luck a little bit and see what you can get away with. Okay, it's raining now and the camera's getting wet, so our time's limited. We might have to shelter in the greenhouse. Oh, I'll just show you this. This air plant is Tillandsia bergii, or bergii hybrid. This has taken light frosts and it's shown to be very hardy in the Grow Paradise garden, and it is multiplying. You're seeing kind of offsets start to be produced. So I'm going to try and spread that around because it's a nice epiphyte to grow. It should root into areas like this. And if I'm lucky enough to have it seed, it might self-seed and start growing, we'll see. I was inspired to try some more air plants from our recent visit to Michael Randall at Misfit Plants, who grows a lot of air plants, some really impressive ones, so I'll link to that video. But if we go down here, past the bananas, you'll see that I've extended this bed. So this is where our decking used to sit before we transformed the Grow Paradise garden into a nursery. But it has given us extra planting space. I think the consensus online is I've dug up my garden, I've got nowhere to grow anything, but I do have a few extra spots, and we are going to create a paradise patio as well, which you might get a little preview of in a minute when I show you some of the plants that I've kept for there. So this is where we're going to dig our wildlife pond. And this is sort of a reminder of the soil that the Grow Paradise garden is based on. That grey muck is pure clay, and you can see it is so heavy that the water is sitting there and it's not draining away. But we've managed to grow so many tropical and exotic style plants. So if you've got heavy clay, don't panic. So many of these plants thrive on it. Just enrich your soil with organic matter like this, and in time it will work through. And if you do that chop and drop method that I've just spoken about, you're going to really bring the soil alive, and the worms, insects and fungal life are going to help break down that clay soil and combine it all into a really healthy ecosystem for your plants. So these pots are plants that I had to dig up as part of the Grow Paradise nursery creation or expansion. So we've got some Colocasia pink china there, which are already starting to shoot. This stem was our Fuchsia boliviana. I don't think that that has made it through winter, but I'm keeping it a little bit longer just to see. I have a Tetrapanax papyrifera that I'm contemplating where I might have space to plant it out in the garden. This was our Salvia serboana, the giant vine-leafed salvia. This should be completely hardy, and it's likely to regrow as the weather warms. And then these pots are two enormous Brugmansia plants, the angel trumpet plant, that have been overwintering in the greenhouse. And I'm just starting to bring them out to harden them off now. And I might find a spot to plunge them for the summer months so we get to enjoy those enormous tropical flowers. Oh. Okay, as I said, it's chucking it down, and I didn't expect I was going to show you around in the greenhouse today, but needs must. The British weather, I mean, they call it April showers after all, right? So let's have a look at some of the new plants that I've grown from seed, some that I've sourced for myself that we're going to be adding to the Grow Paradise garden this year. It's really important to keep trying new plants. I mean, stick with the plants you love, obviously, but experiment, find new plants. So I'm happy to keep doing that and keep sharing it with you. So let me show you some. Okay, so the nursery is absolutely chocker at the moment. We've got loads of colocasia plugs in, which is great. There's loads of plants for you, but I'm going to keep one of each for the Grow Paradise garden as well, so I can show you how they look through the seasons. I love colocasia. They're just a nice, easy plant for instant tropical impact because they give such amazing foliage. But let me show you some other plants. This canna. This is Canna Tropicana Gold because it's got these lovely golden streaks through the leaves. Now I've potted this one on. It was a nursery product. I think we've still got some available. But I love the foliage on this plant. It gives amazing tropical looking foliage even before it flowers. And the flower is a bright orange flower, which is going to look so good against this foliage. Now I've got another form of Canna Tropicana as well. Not the gold form. This is straight Canna Tropicana with really, really colourful foliage. Again, it's been potted on, so it's bulking up quickly. And this will have that same orange flower, but look how colourful that foliage is before it's even produced a bloom. I love that. And it's getting better and better. Now it's establishing in this bigger pot. This is why I love this time of year. You just pot things on and they're growing so fast. We are, believe it or not, having occasional sunny days. And when the sun is beaming into this greenhouse, the heat builds up and everything just grows away really, really well. What else have I got? Oh, I don't know if I've shown you this on the channel before. This is Phytolacca Lacca Boom. Now this is the flower spike. A hot pink flower spike with dark berries. You get this colourful, almost amaranthus-like foliage on a really bright pink stem. Now this will grow into kind of a herbaceous shrub-like form, loads of branches with loads of these flowers. And I've grown this from seed. We've actually got some seed available on the online shop, I think. And it's a really good colourful plant for a tropical border. So if you imagine that combined with lush green foliage, it's going to really just give a pop of colour. And the fact that the berries are growing means it's been pollinated. So it's a plant that's good for the pollinators in your garden as well. This one I like, the Mexican cigar plant, they call it, because these flowers look like tiny orange cigars, and it flowers like mad as well. This has got a really nice feature. When this is pollinated, the flower will close up and seeds will form inside, so it almost forms like its own little seed packet that you can then open up and sow the seeds. Again, this is another plant that I've grown from seed. It's its first time in the Grow Paradise garden, but that hot orange colour will look great in full sun or partial shade. And as it produces seed, I'll grow more and more, and hopefully have some available for all of you as well. I think the Latin name for this is Cuphea insignis or ignea, something like that. I'll put it on screen. Oh, something I forgot to mention. In that jungle border that we were just looking at before the heavens opened, there was a Muschia wollastonii that I was trying to overwinter under a protective layer of fleece. Bad news, it didn't survive. I showed you kind of in one of our last garden updates that it was really looking quite squishy and soggy. Well, yeah, the frost got to it, it completely died back. But luckily, I've got a couple of seed-grown plants that are growing on from last year. I've also sown some more now, but they are minuscule when they come up. So as this kind of roots into this pot, I'll just pot it on into a bigger pot and sit it in the Grow Paradise garden where we can enjoy it all summer long. But I'm going to keep it in a pot so that I can bring it in, because that's 2 years now that I've tried to get away with overwintering Muschia outside, and in my garden it just doesn't happen. Let's see what else we've got here. Oh, this is looking nice. This has been featured on the Grow Paradise channel a lot, but it's worth a feature now. Look at the size of this. This is my Begonia pedata feeder. And it might be a form called the red petiole form because it's got these bright red leaf stems. Now this is a hardy plant, but I use this as my stock plant for propagation, so I keep it in the greenhouse just to keep it safe and give it a bit of extra protection. But look how lush and gigantic that is already at this time of year. I've got some of them outside and they're just starting to shoot, but they don't look anything like this, and I love it for that kind of divided leaf and that leaf stem colour. Actually, I'm going to put that on my potting bench so I'll remember to propagate it. And there's a new tree that I've grown from seed. Now, it doesn't look like a tree at the moment. It's obviously just a tiny seedling. But this is Tuna sinensis. Its common name is the Chinese mahogany. And this is a really, really good tree for a tropical style garden because it has enormous leaves that have a really nice fragrance to them. Now, the leaves and the wood, the bark, are used in ceremonies because they have a good fragrance and they're burnt. But where I've seen this grown before, it's grown as a tree and then cut back really hard, a bit like you would with a Paulownia tomentosa. You cut it back hard and then it's going to push out really big leaves and it's going to grow really quickly in one season. And then you can just cut it back again in spring. But each year you're maintaining the height and you get these really big jungly leaves. So I'm going to add that to the Grow Paradise garden probably this year if it grows enough. They have grown so well from seed. I've got a batch there. So I'm looking forward to showing you all of that one. Yeah, Tuna sinensis, and the common name is the Chinese mahogany. Now there are a few other plants here, but I'm not going to show you everything because the rain has stopped, so I'm going to take my opportunity to carry on the Grow Paradise garden tour. Come with me. Okay, let's have a look at this narrow border. So this is the border that flanks the garden path. And last year I felt like was one of the first times since we've been in the garden that I've got it right. And I've just sat a few other plants in the border just to experiment and see what I might do as changes this year, because gardens aren't something that you do once and then they're completely finished. It's supposed to be an evolution. You're supposed to keep kind of experimenting, changing things, find what works. It doesn't always end up perfect first time round. So we'll start from this end. This is our Saxifraga stolonifera. The common name is the strawberry begonia, and it's not a strawberry and it's not a begonia, it's a saxifrage. And this has been hardy in the Grow Paradise garden. I've mentioned it quite a few times. It's a really, really nice ground cover plant that produces blooms in summer that look like a cloud of miniature orchids just swaying in a summer breeze. But there's a plant growing through it that I completely forgot about. This is a hardy impatiens, and I can't remember the name of it. It might be something like pink nerves or pink veins. And you can see that it's run through the border and it's produced these soft herbaceous shoots. And it's a really nice contrast leaf to this, and I really like in my garden. It's a small mid-terrace UK garden, so it's nothing special, but plants are finding a way to naturalise just as they would in a rainforest or a temperate forest. So it doesn't matter what space you've got, you can get that naturalistic jungle style happening kind of with the plants of their own accord. They will find where they want to grow. They don't always want to grow where you put them. They might set seed and a seed will land in kind of in the crack in your paving, and then you'll get an echium or something growing up there, and it's perfectly happy to grow there, not where you originally put it. Now, this lovely evergreen grass flanking the path is a Chorus gramineus, and I think this is the cultivar Ogon. Now, this was just 1 or 2 pots when we moved in, and I've just divided it and spread it as the years have gone by, and I really like the way it's softening that hard edge. It's a really nice contrast to that corten steel edging we've put in for the nursery there. Oh no, my succulents have blown over. There's a couple of semponiums that I'm keeping, and I'm going to plunge into the gravel here and to kind of encourage them to grow out and over, and we'll see how they do, because in summer this area gets so hot. You can see I've done the same thing here with some larger aeoniums. Just got them sat in pots for now, but in time I will plunge them into the gravel. But yeah, I really like how this looks, softening the patio, which I know needs a clean. I'll get there at some point. Then we've got another Fatsia polycarpa green fingers. It's just such a good plant for creating that tropical look and giving you year-round exotic foliage. Now, these blue flowers are a lovely addition that belongs to that silver-leaved Brunnera. I think this one's called sea heart or silver heart because of these silver heart-shaped leaves. I can't remember. Now, Brunnera for me do really well. The slugs, most of the time, don't touch them because the leaves are covered in tiny hairs that give it a rough surface that I don't think slugs and snails like to go across. But this silvery leaf really brightens up a dark spot. They're drought tolerant, and in spring you do get these forget-me-not type flowers, which just adds a pop of colour. Now, as we go along, there's a fern that has remained evergreen outside in the Grow Paradise garden. It looks a bit like the maidenhair fern that we grow as a houseplant, and its common name is actually the hardy maidenhair fern. Now this is Adiantum venustum, and this is a really nice fern that will gradually crawl around here and form a really nice colony or clump of these delicate looking leaves. I was surprised that it stayed evergreen, especially with the cold temperatures we had, but it has, and I think, again, because this stem belongs to an evergreen laurel plant, has helped to provide a warmer microclimate here. Now, over the past probably month now, I've been moving some of our half-hardy plants out, like this abutilon. Now, this is apfelzine, and it's one of my favourite cultivars with these bright orange flowers. Imagine that with that orange Mexican cigar plant growing here. The two would combine really, really well together. Now, this is still in a pot, and it's tucked here because of that warm microclimate beneath the laurel plant. But it's much happier out in the garden now, producing flowers and buds with that slightly cooler temperature and the rainwater landing in the pot. I'm going to try and add a lot more of these abutilon plants to the Grow Paradise garden because they just flower so much and give so much colour through the year. Again, there's a couple of clumps of Tillandsia usneoides, or Spanish moss, just hanging from this laurel plant. Again, these have been, not all winter, but these have been out probably for a couple of months now. So I'm just testing kind of different hardiness spots and microclimates in the garden to see how much I can elongate my growing season at the spring side of things. I know that I can wait till the first frosts at the end of the season, but how early in spring can I get things out and start getting my garden looking much more full and lush again? Then next to that hardy maiden's hair fern is another Saxifraga. This is Saxifraga stolonifera tricolour. This is a nice pink variegated form that has these creamy pink margins. Now these are still in pots, but where I've seen that other Saxifraga has done so well down there, I'm going to try and get a clump of this pink form just spreading around here and seeing how it's going to do. This has survived sub-zero temperatures in the Grow Paradise garden, so I'm happy to plant it out. It's going to be absolutely fine. And yeah, just another experiment for me. It's going to add a bit of a pop of colour, and we'll see how it does. Now, one plant that slugs and snails do love is my Farfugium japonicum aurea maculatum, that really nice leopard plant with the golden yellow spots through the leaves. I think I'm going to lift this one and grow it in a container with a bit of extra protection because it's such a nice foliage plant. And it's a real shame that as soon as new leaves emerge, they disappear. I don't want to put slug pellets down. I'm happy to share the garden, but I'd like to enjoy these leaves a little bit longer. So yeah, I think this one's going to be lifted. And that evergreen fern at the back, which adds kind of a foliage backdrop to this narrow border all through winter. Some of the leaves are looking a bit messy now, but that's absolutely fine because you can see there's new fronds coming out at the back, so there's going to be lush, kind of healthy, green new leaves. There you go, even more fronds there to replace these old frost damaged ones soon. But it's nice to have something that kind of holds the fort when all those soft herbaceous plants have become dormant in winter. And I think this fern is Polysticum munitum. And then the large shrubs. My Fatsia japonica variegata, which is the one with these really nice chunky variegated margins on the leaf. And our Sambucus nigra, and this is a cultivar called Blue Sheen because the leaves have a really nice silvery blue sheen in the right light. Now the rain has started again, so we'll see if I have to run back into the greenhouse. Before it gets too wet, I'll just show you this area. So I'm not going to show you the whole space because this is what we're going to turn in to the Paradise patio, but I'm just going to show you some of the plants here, and you'll have to follow along if you want to see the full transformation of this space because we're going to have some big plans. So this dandelion is a tree dandelion. It's Sonchus fruticosus. I grew this from seed a couple of years back, and it survived in the greenhouse at a minimum temperature of 5 degrees Celsius. This is the Justicia carnea, the Brazilian plume flower, the one that I said that I overwintered in the greenhouse. So I wasn't worried about that one that I left out in the garden, so I was happy to experiment with this. I'm pleased that that's out. This lovely shrub is our Euphorbia mellifera John Phillips. Mellifera cross pasteuri John Phillips. This was originally in the centre of the garden, and I had to dig it up and containerize it. There you go, you can see it's in a pot. But I'm pleased to say it's done well, it's producing blooms, and it's given us something lush and green to look at all winter long. And before the camera breaks down in the rain, I'll just show you this. This is another Fatsia form, Fatsia japonica, and this is a cultivar called Camouflage with golden variegated leaves. It's really, really nice, and I'm not decided yet where I'm going to put that. That's going to be part of this patio creation. Right, the camera's getting drenched. Let's run back to the greenhouse. Oh, it's been a bit like that this year, hasn't it? You run out because the sun's out, you can see blue sky. As soon as you get your tools out, as soon as you're out there, the clouds start coming over and you know your time's limited. But I guess that's what it's all about. Just taking the most of every opportunity you've got to get out into the garden or to grow plants wherever you're growing your own patch of paradise. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this impromptu look around the Grow Paradise garden, and you've had a sneaky look at what's going to be our Paradise Patio project, which is going to be a space where we're going to find ways to make a small space feel lush and jungly, and hopefully that can inspire anyone growing in a limited space. Now, if you enjoy growing these plants, hit subscribe and perhaps join our forum at growparadise.social, where there is a global community of people helping each other grow these plants. And if you're in the UK, feel free to check out our plant and seed shop at growparadise.co.uk. Now, thank you so much for the support. I've got lots of exciting videos lined up for you, so hit subscribe and I will see you all in the next one.